Hello, everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now let's begin. Story 1. The Forney Creek Spur. Great Smoky Mountains National Park tourists were draining toward Gatlinburg motels when I ducked the rust-flecked gate on the condemned Forney Creek Spur, camera swinging and heart buzzing with October wood smoke. Ranger Mills had warned me trail's been closed 10 years. After dark, it doesn't give folks back. But a cobalt strip of sky promised the shot that would sell my Smokies photo book. 10 minutes in the spruce hush felt padded like snow without the cold. Rotten bridges lay in the stream, every blaze peeled away, yet I kept walking until my camera clock blinked 12 minutes after sunset. The forest swallowed its own noise. Ahead, the trail dipped into a ravine choked with rhododendron, and a heap of abandoned backpacks glimmered under my headlamp. Tags dated from 2015 to last summer. A park radio squawked in the pile. Mills's voice bled through static, calling my name even though no signal reaches this valley. I answered, and the radio replied with a child sobbing, repeating turnaround. My shutter fired on its own, strobing the brush. Each flash froze pallid faces half shrouded in leaves, their clothes decades out of fashion, eyes cat yellow. I sprinted uphill, but the trail looped impossibly, spitting me back at the ravine. Shadows whispered, footstep counts 11-12, matching the years since closure. Remembering Mills's remark that the ghost flood had ripped out the old Sky Notch fire tower, I guessed the thing feared heights. I bushwhacked straight up the ridge, shredding my palms until I burst onto US 441, where headlights nearly clipped me. Mills skidded his Jeep sideways, jaw slack. "Gates welded," he muttered. Behind us, the entrance lay buried under fresh mud as though no path had existed. Days later, an unmarked envelope arrived. Inside was a cracked ranger badge, stamped 1941, and a tiny park wristband still wet with creek water. When I weighed them together, they totaled exactly 11 ounces, one for every missing hiker. And I fear a down payment on the 12th. I still hear water gurgling whenever I review the raw files, like the creek is running right beneath my desk, waiting for the next trespasser. Story 2. Devil's Kitchen Night Route. Yellowstone National Park. The night I agreed to guide 2 geology grad students down Yellowstone's forbidden Devil's Kitchen, fissure steam columns curled above the caldera like luminous ghosts, and every instinct screamed that valleys holding boiling acid shouldn't whisper my name. But I craved overtime pay and a fresh thrill. We rappelled past the trail-closed 2014 sublimation danger placard chalk, crunching under boots, sulfur stinging our throats. The canyon walls glowed ember red in headlamp beams, and geyser thumps kept a funeral drumbeat. Halfway down, Clara, the braver student, paused, claiming the rocks were vibrating words. "Not again." I laughed it off until my altimeter reset to 0 FT, as if we'd plummeted to sea level inside a mountain at 7,500 FT. Then the air shifted colder than a January blizzard, extinguishing our lamps in one hiss. In that ink, Clara's recorder looped a ranger's 2013 distress call. "Gas breach, I'm stuck near the pots, can't feel my legs," a call that reportedly ceased when his radio melted. A glow oozed from below, emerald silhouettes pacing the mud pots. Skeleton-thin ribs like cooling fins, their mouths chewing nothing but snapping anyway. We tried to ascend, but the rope sagged slack, the anchor bolts now embedded in soft clay impossible geology. Steam spiraled into shapes of Park County license plates, the same number as tourists lost here since the closure, 7 and counting. I remembered an old Shoshone legend that spirits guarding the caldera hate sweetgrass. Frantically, I burned the braid my grandma had blessed and kept in my pack. The smoke carved a tunnel of breathable air. In that window the fissure relit, and we clawed upward while unseen hands plucked at our boots. We topped out at dawn to find the closure sign replaced by a fresh one dated 2025, although rangers swear no crew visited overnight. Clara's backpack felt heavier. Inside was a fused mass of radioplastic stamped with the missing ranger's badge number and a still-ticking Geiger counter reading exactly 7 points USVH, 1 spike for each vanished hiker. Sometimes while editing the expedition footage, I catch the counter jump to 8 before the clip glitches as though the kitchen already knows who it wants next. Story 3. Phantom Switchbacks. Zion National Park. A sliver of desert moonlight painted the Virgin River silver when I followed my brother Nate onto the barricaded East Rim Spur, the one scarred by a 2016 rockfall and officially closed indefinitely. We were ex-rangers turned YouTube explorers chasing views, convinced we'd film angels landing from a vantage no influencer had shown. The first switchbacks were familiar sandstone but eerily silent. No screech owls, no cicadas, just our breath ricocheting off the canyon. A mile in my Garmin lost satellite lock and the trail forked where no map showed a fork. A hand-carved sign read Hopper's Trace. The air smelled like old pennies. Nate, stubborn, pressed on to prove I'd baby out. We soon found stone steps descending in a corkscrew, each riser tagged with decades-faded initials. Halfway down, we spotted a Ranger Stetson wedged in a crevice, its crown stamped Hopper 1995, the name of a Zion lifer who vanished the summer the Narrows flooded. Nate slipped it on jokingly, and the canyon wind answered with a low whistle that sounded like boots scuffing behind us. My camera mic recorded a man's voice counting 1 switchback, 2, all the way to 33, the number Hopper etched on every trail log before he disappeared. At switchback 27, Nate froze. A lantern glow bobbed below, revealing a ranger in soggy khakis, skin leached of color, beckoning with a traffic wand. Nate, entranced, staggered forward until I yanked the Stetson off his head. The figure dissolved and the temperature leapt from 45 to 90, reeking of creosote as if we'd stepped into a furnace vent. A sandstone slab the size of an SUV sheared off the wall, sealing the path we'd just descended. Trapped, we remembered a backcountry myth: the ghost of Hopper guards a shortcut used by bootleg miners and hates artificial light. I killed every LED guiding Nate by touch until a natural glow shimmered through the crack of dawn. We emerged onto the main observation point trail to meet a rescue crew already searching for 2 hikers lost overnight. Their incident log listed Hopper's badge number as the reporting party time-stamped 30 minutes after he lured Nate. Inside the Stetson, now brittle as parchment, lay a fresh Zion backcountry permit dated August 1, 2025 and stamped party size 2-1. Sometimes editing the footage, I hear a switchback count start at 34, as though the canyon is still adding steps and maybe new names to its ledger. Story 4. The old Fern Lake fire line. Rocky Mountain National Park blizzards had hammered Estes Park all week. Yet a freak lull opened one sapphire morning, daring Maria Gallegos, the park's youngest wildlife sound recordist, and me to snowshoe for elk calls along the condemned Fern Lake fire line, a spur erased by the 2012 wildfire and officially off-limits since. The hush felt sacred, the charred lodge poles creaking like broken violins. Maria needed fresh audio for her graduate thesis. I just wanted the bragging rights of first tracks across 10 years of forbidden ash. A mile past the legal trailhead, the snow glittered strangely smooth as if ironed flat. My GPS went blind screen white, and Maria's parabolic mic caught a low human murmur counting 12 winters, even though we were alone. Then from beneath the crust, a warm updraft rose impossible at 9,000 feet in January, carrying the smell of wet pine tar and something metallic. We found a row of melted snowshoes, half buried like stepping stones, their bindings fused, each tagged with an orange 2013 search and rescue flag. Park folklore whispered that the Fern Lake crew left markers before they vanished in a flashover, but the investigation file was sealed. While recording, Maria noticed the mic cable sagging toward a hairline crack in the snow as if gravity reversed. She leaned too close. The crust fractured into a fireworks hiss, revealing a black shaft descending into glowing coals that shouldn't still burn. Echoes inside resolved into walkie chatter from the lost crew fire's crowning pullback gate sealed. Flames licked up in icy air, tracing silhouettes of firefighters still wielding tools, their helmets glowing embers. We scrambled, but every step forward sank us deeper snow, turning to sticky charcoal. Remembering a Lakota tale that mountain spirits despise hammered metal, I unclipped my aluminum poles and hurled them into the pit. The flaming figures recoiled, giving us a corridor of frost-rimmed darkness. We bolted uphill until wind chill knifed our cheeks and Bear Lake's distant parking lights winked through the storm's return. Rangers met us furious, claiming the closure gate remained chained. Our tracks, they said, ended 50 yards inside. Maria's recorder, though fried, still ticked timestamp cycling 01/12/2023 through 01/12/2033 on endless loop, as if the lost crew were counting winters until someone trades places. Last night, editing Maria's corrupted files, I caught a final whisper. 13th winter coming, bring two. And when I glanced at our snowshoes by the door, the metal buckles were gone, as if they'd marched off toward the fire line on their own. Story 5. The Deadfalls Drift. Glacier National Park. Tourists sipping huckleberry lattes in West Glacier had mocked my plan to ski the condemned Deadfalls Drift, a wind-swept saddle above Avalanche Lake, closed since the 2018 slide, but freelance avalanche footage pays rent, and my partner Eli Ace McBride hungered for one last viral clip before Ranger Quinton dynamited the cornice for good. A dawn halo ringed Heaven's Peak silver, and the air snapped like cracked glass as we skinned past the area closed sign buried to its neck. Trees thinned into a graveyard of shattered trunks. Each stump looked chainsawed, yet no saw mark showed. Locals say the 18 slide didn't cut it tore. My altimeter pinged 7200 FT when wind dropped to a tomb hush, letting us hear distant laughter echoing upward, child-thin syllables matching the cadence slide with us. Eli brushed it off until his beacon flashed a signal. Channel 3 code 2018, the code of 3 Boy Scouts entombed here, the year of the disaster. Our radios crackled with their last camp address cords off by 2 miles, but eerily marching toward us. Halfway up the drift, snow under Eli's skis settled with a sigh, exposing a buried scout neckerchief still bright red against blue ice. My GoPro caught a sudden thermal inversion lens fogged inside, while outside temp stayed 12 degrees, and in that fog silhouettes of 3 boys materialized, their faces rippled as if viewed underwater, beckoning Eli to finish the ascent. He powered ahead even as I yelled the ghost rule whispered by Blackfeet guides: the drift claims those who let youthful voices lead. I unlatched my bindings and belly crawled downslope, but Eli plunged his probe to test snowpack, triggering a drum-like whomp. The slab fractured in a perfect hexagon around him and rocketed skyward, lifting him as though surf riding. In panic, I hurled my metal shovel spirits here loath iron into the fracture. It skewed the slide's symmetry, diverting a white river that roared past me and snapped trees like matchsticks while Eli vanished behind the plume. Silence returned with snowfall so fine it glittered purple. I followed a fresh trench, expecting a body, but found Eli upright, dazed, standing on bare ground at the 18 burial site, his beacon fused to 0000. In his hand he clutched a Polaroid never owned before, 3 scouts grinning at a summit cairn and a shadow in the corner wearing Eli's orange helmet. Rangers airlifted us out, swearing the drift gate showed no new tracks. Weeks later, my avalanche footage auto-uploaded at 03:18 a.m. The exact minute the scouts were lost, with a file size of 3.18 gigabytes and a thumbnail of 4 silhouettes, the newest one sporting an orange helmet and waving me back up the drift. Story 6. The Ghost Light of Lost Palms. Joshua Tree National Park. Dawn hadn't cracked yet when videographer Lacey Lynx Ibarra and I ducked the rust-streaked fence barring the Lost Palms Oasis spur shut since a 2014 flash flood swept away 2 search and rescue techs. We hunted a sunrise time-lapse for her Desert Night series, believing the canyon's rumored ghost light would juice the algorithm. 10 minutes and my thermometer jumped from 48 degrees to 112, sizzling camera grease, though the pre-dawn air felt crisp. The gravel path blurred into mirror-smooth gypsum, reflecting moonlight so bright it looked like wet pavement. From the hollow chala we heard a faint clack, 2 metal taps, the SOS those techs radioed before static swallowed them. Lacey, chasing ambience, set her condenser mic on a boulder. Its LEDs blinked Morse LOST. That's when we spotted it, an orb the size of a cantaloupe hovering where the trail had washed out, shedding cold blue sparks. I framed a shot. The orb blinked off, reappearing 20 feet closer, illuminating a Ranger Stetson half buried in silt, badge number 214, one of the missing techs. Lacey stepped forward and the desert went mute. No coyotes yipping, no wind through yucca, only her breath rasping. The orb winked again, now inches from her lens, and every screen cam phone, even my analog watch, reset to 04:14, the flash flood timestamp. Inciting panic, I recalled a Cahuilla legend that restless desert spirits loathe the scent of crushed creosote. I knelt ground leaves between palms and hurled the pungent wad at the orb. It recoiled, flaring green, and the gypsum under a spider cracked like thin ice. Beneath the crust roared a black tunnel with water thundering uphill against gravity. A ghostly pair of rescue shears clacked the SOS again, but pitched higher, as if angry we'd stalled its quarry. Lacey bolted. I followed every footfall, collapsing slabs behind us into the reverse waterfall. We burst onto the Cottonwood Road pullout just as first light bled coral over Pinto Basin. Rangers idling there swore the spur was still gated and padlocked. Our tire tracks ended yards short. In Lacey's pack sat her mic housing fused display looping 414 415U before fading. Back home, her time-lapse rendered itself 12 seconds of sped-up stars wheeling over lost palms, then a freeze framed the orb hovering beside two SAR techs in soaked jumpsuits. Handcuffs of desert vine linking their wrists to a third shadow wearing Lacey's beanie. In the frame's corner glows a timestamp we never set. Next, flood 10/08/2025. Whenever we scrub past that mark, our speakers pop with 3 clicks, tap, tap, tap like metal blades, reminding us the desert's debt is only deferred. Story 7. Midnight Muck Trail. Everglades National Park night winds slid through the buttonwood like snakes when Ranger Al Ortega bet me I wouldn't kayak the condemned Midnight Muck Trail, a tidal gut that vanished after Hurricane Irma but still shows up on pre-2017 maps, so of course I launched at 11:47 p.m. for bragging rights on my Cryptid Tour podcast. The hook was simple: paddle 3 miles and plant a GoPro where wardens claimed ghost lights dance and be back before sunrise. The brackish mirror glowed teal under half moon and cicadas droned slow as if the swamp's heart were on a dimmer switch. My motive beyond ego was catching new subscribers desperate for true haunts in America's wetlands. Half a mile in mangrove roots arched overhead like cathedral ribs, and phosphorescent minnows flickered around my hull, beautiful until every spark winked out at once, plunging me into ink. Inciting terror, my depth finder jumped from 7 feet to 80 in a spot barely wide enough for a John boat, then reset to 0.0, claiming I floated on dry land. Rising dread thickened when a handheld radio I'd stuffed for safety crackled with Al's voice from Park HQ 20 miles away. Turn back, the tide's running backward. Water indeed sucked inland. Current lines rushed opposite the moon pools, slicing the surface with cold updrafts that reeked of diesel and formaldehyde, the cocktail used to embalm the park's drowned smugglers a century back. Legends say those bootleggers appear as bone-white egrets guiding victims to the Gulf. Sure enough, 3 birds glided above silent despite flapping wings. I followed their path until the channel widened to reveal a rotting trawler named Irma's debt, cabin lights burning though its deck sat under 4 feet of water. Climax hit when a spotlight snapped on, revealing the egrets now perched as shriveled men in oilskins, eye sockets glowing kelp green, beckoning with flares that hissed pay. My kayak anchored to the spot as if roots gripped it. Outcome looked fatal until I recalled a Mikosuke rule swamp shades abhor white rum, the spirit they once smuggled. I smashed my flask against the hull, spilling rum into the tide. Vapor erupted like dry ice, and the specters shrieked, retreating inside the trawler as the current flipped seaward. Freed, I paddled madly, surf-riding a reverse wave that spat me onto the Flamingo launch at 3:06 a.m. Kayak plastered in eelgrass, spelling DUE. Twist came when I checked my GoPro. Instead of swamp footage, it looped a black and white reel dated 09/10/1926, showing the trawler crew loading barrels, a young man among them wearing my modern life vest and shouting, "Time to settle the debt." Rangers swear the midnight muck hasn't held water since Irma filled it with silt. But every new moon tide, a depth reading of 80 FT flickers on their sonar, as if the swamp still opens a ledger waiting for anyone who rows in owing fear.